Hey, it's time for a devotion from history. On April 6th of 1909, Commander Robert E. Peary is remembered for being the first man to make it to the North Pole. Well, maybe. Turns out that the first man at the North Pole probably wasn't Robert Peary at all, but Matthew Henson. Now, Matthew Henson was only 12 years old when his parents died, and so he joined up with a merchant sea ship, educated himself, traveled around the world on adventures, and became quite the skilled navigator. He met up with Robert Peary in 1887, and the two began traveling together on expeditions all through the Northlands. Well, in 1909, when Robert Peary decided to try for the 8th time to reach the North Pole, he selected Matthew Henson to go along with him. And as they were traveling and getting closer to the spot, turns out that Robert Peary really was very sick and spent most of his time riding in the dog sled. Well, Matthew Henson and a few others were selected to go on ahead and scout out the area. Matthew tells a newspaper reporter sometime after the fact that they had overshot the mark of the North Pole by a few miles and turned around and tracked back. And when they got back to the spot where the North Pole was, Matthew said he could see that his footprints were clearly the first ones there, and it was him that proceeded to plant the American flag at the North Pole. Well, when they returned to the States, there were a lot of accolades for Admiral Peary, but Matthew Henson was largely forgotten. For the next 30 years, he spent his time working in a customs house in New York. Why? Well, Matthew Henson was Robert Peary's black servant. You know, Jesus tells us that our Father sees the things in secret that no one else sees, and He rewards openly. Sometimes it feels like we do a lot of the work and get very little of the credit, and sometimes that little credit comes for reasons that are unfair and unjust, like the case of Matthew Henson. But remember this, that there comes a time when God makes sure that justice comes about. Later on, Matthew Henson received the same medal as Robert Peary. Did it come soon enough? Probably should have come a little earlier. But what's important is we remember that it's the secret things that other people don't always know about that we hold close to our heart because they reveal to us our abilities and our character in who we are, regardless of what everybody else sees. Because you know what? Sometimes the best history is made in secret.